Good evening, everyone. Welcome along to the SFC interviews here with former Stevenage defender Matt Hocking today. So, how you doing, Matt? You okay, mate?
I'm great, Mike. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me on and inviting me to the chat. I'm looking forward to it.
It should be good, this one. I know you've had a couple of seasons. We were just talking there for about 15, 20 minutes beforehand as well. You had 2 seasons with the club and, you said you made a few notes as well. You think you're the most prepared one we've had.
Well, you know what? You look back, and I thought, obviously, I've got the chat today, and I look back and thought about obviously things on the field that happened when I was a player, but also, there's a lot of things that happened off the field, and with the teammates and change room stuff that, we had some good time. Like I still said to you before, I had some good times at Stevenage, and good memories.
And what was it about sort of Stevenage Football Club, Stevenage Borough Football Club at the time, that attracted you to sign?
Well, I'll tell you the story, really. The previous season, I was at, obviously, Boston United, and I was there playing 2 seasons at Boston. And then they had a change of manager, and I left the club, and it was the end of the season. So during the off-season, just waiting and thinking, well, there's going to be other clubs are interested, and I'll make sure, I'll get a club eventually, during pre-season. Someone will call me. So I waited all pre-season, Mike, and all the off-season. Pre-season came, and teams had already started back training, and I thought to myself, it's late now. There's not many clubs that have inquired. There's been a couple that have been, I've heard that might be interested, but nothing solid's happened. And then I saw Anthony Eldin, actually, because obviously we lived in the same town in Boston.
Yeah.
And he said, Matt, I've mentioned it to Graham Wesley. He said, because Graham's looking for a defender, and I've told him all about you, and he knows about you. And he might give you a call. So Graham called me, I think, the next day and said, Matt, come down on Monday morning, and I want to have a chat with you. And so I did. I went down to speak to Graham at Stevenage, and I remember, it's clear as day, I remember parking up in the car park at the ground, and I actually left my phone in the car, and I walked in, and I met Graham and had a good chat with him. And I went to the chat I had with him was more like an interview. It was like, I remember clearly he asked me kind of what I've achieved in the game, what I want to achieve, and what if I wanted to win things. And it was really thorough with, I think, when I look back now as being older, the personality I was. Because that was a big thing for Graham, not just the type of player I was, but I think the personalities he used to bring in. So I had a good chat with him, and he offered me something, and I was, pleased with what he offered me. And I said, listen, I want to get going. I love what you're saying, and obviously know that the club's a big non-league club. And he told me about the other boys he'd brought in, obviously Rob Quinn and the likes of ex-league players as well, alongside obviously the good players he already had. And it's funny because I signed there and then, Mike. And I walked back to my car, probably after an hour, after being in an hour and a half. Got back to my car, and the first thing I did was I looked at my phone, and I had so many missed calls on my phone. And my father was one of them, and so I called him back, and I said to my dad, "Are you okay?" He went, "Yeah, have you signed for Stevenage, Matt?" And I went, I have. I've just, he went, "Matt, Keith Alexander's been trying to call you, obviously at Lincoln City."
Yeah.
He said he's been calling me. He's desperate. He wants to sign you as well. And so obviously Lincoln were League Two at the time, and near to where I lived. And I was like, oh, well, I can't. So I rang Keith, and in the car park at Stevenage, and I said to Keith, Matt, he went, "I want you to sign for Lincoln." He said, "I've been trying to move a few things around, and I've known you for a while now, and I'd like you to sign here." And he said, "I want you to go back into Stevenage and tell Graham you don't want to play for him." And I was like,
"Oh, wow. You literally can't do that." Yeah.
Madness. So he actually called Graham himself. He said, "No, listen, I'm going to do it." So he called Graham and said, "Listen, I want to take Matt." And he just cancelled his contract. I want to keep him in the Football League and playing for Lincoln.
Yeah.
And Graham would have none of it. He said, "Listen, I'm not. Nah, I've moved players around, and I've planned for this now." He said, and I'm not letting him go anywhere. He signed I think a 2-year deal.
2-year, yeah.
And so it was. It was mad, really. Like I said, I'd waited for quite a number of weeks thinking things would happen, and on the same morning.
You get to the whole, like buses situation. Yeah.
Yeah. So, now I finished my career, and I look back and I think, it's what could have been, but I don't regret it for a second, because like I just spoke to you before we started the Zoom, I had some real good times at Stevenage, and I can honestly say with Graham, I mean, he was a big character, and I learned a lot. From Graham, so it was a good learning experience at Stevenage.
And that was going to be my next question as well, in regards to Graham as well as a manager. What sort of things did you learn from him? Because obviously, even going back to when you left the club and took over at Boston, did you kind of implement any of those kind of methods that he had?
I think, when I finished playing, completely. Then I went into coaching. Obviously, like I know some of the ex-boys are now. You can't help but look back on your career. I'm going to say soccer, by the way, because obviously
that's right.
I'm going to say so, but back on your football career, and you obviously take some of the experiences that you've had, and I look back to Graham and think, like I said, I've learned a lot from him. He was a big character. Some things you don't agree with, and I look back now and think I know why he did things, but I can honestly say that he put his heart and soul into Stevenage. Everything he did. He worked really hard. He made sure that he gave the club everything he got, and some of the things we did. One of the clear memories I remember is I remember on a Friday. We used to do gym sessions on a Friday before a game, obviously on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And we used to be in there, and we used to be lifting weights and working really hard in the gym, probably a good hour of doing lots of weights and lifting and power stuff. And he'd be in the middle, like saying, who else is doing this kind of stuff on a Friday? We are stronger. We are fitter than any other team in the league, which is a big thing for Graham with his fitness stuff. And we'd be all like, yeah, because everyone's at home resting. They're getting their rest for tomorrow's game. They're going to be fresh. But, you look back and think he wanted us, he tried to give us everything. And, I learned a lot from him.
And sometimes, that actually did work in the club's favour as well. Because obviously Graham's had a number of spells, and you can see that even if you go to some of the latter spells that he's had getting promotions and back-to-back promotions and FA Cup runs and stuff as well. You can see that, even teams like Newcastle were not scared. Not a sort of, big Premier League side and sort of teams like that. And Graham's going out there sort of no fear, and that's it. We can beat anybody on any given day, and we turned them over. So
yeah, exactly. Well, you know what? It's big. I think you knew then that it's not. And I'm coaching, young adults now. I mean, I've got over here. I've got an under 16s team, and since I played, a few years ago, the game's got quicker. The game does move on, and if you think back to the likes of Neil Ruddock and Julian. I remember watching the West Ham one when I was a kid at Sheffield United. Julian Dix, Neil Ruddock, and remember Jan Molt. They wouldn't play. They wouldn't be in the modern. They'd have to change to be in the modern game now because you look at Leeds United and the Bielsa documentary that's been on, and he's big on how fit some of these top players are these days. These days are you've got to be an athlete, and I think Graham knew that at the time, and so he knew that if we were fit and stronger than everyone else, and could compete, and we were probably arguably technically and better than any other team, and should be any other team in the league. So I think he thought if he gave us that, there's no excuses to go on. And like I said to you, you look back and the players we had and the characters we had and the experience we had, we probably definitely underachieved by not getting promotion the 2 years I was at the club.
And of course, that first season was the season we got into the playoffs as well, as we were saying beforehand.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talented players in that squad, youth and experience as well. Take George Boyd, for example, coming through at that time, and he's just signed for Salford City in about the last week or so. So players like him, players like Ant, players like Dino, players like Rob, Jason, guys like that. Yeah.
Exactly. We had some strong players, and like I said, about when I first signed for the club, Graham. I can see now I'm older. I look back and think he didn't just sign players that were good players. He signed players with a certain character, I think. He wanted players that were hungry. He wanted players that wanted to achieve things. He wanted players that wanted to work hard, had good attitudes, resilient, and he wanted that kind of type of player in the club, because I think and it was genius, really, because you look now at the modern day, you look at, let me give you an example. Man United. I'm kind of a Man United fan as well.
Right.
And obviously they've got some real talented players. But you look at the type of characters they've got, and you look at some of the internationals got, and you do question their desire and their attitude, and if they really want to achieve stuff, or if they're just going through the motions. And Graham, I think at Stevenage, he thought, don't want players like that.
Yeah.
I want players that want to work hard and achieve things, and have got that grit. And good example is Dino. Without not disrespecting him, but he'll admit himself that he's not the most technically gifted player in the world. And when I first went to the club, I looked at Dino and thought, he'd obviously played in the USA and had a decent career when I got there.
Yeah.
And I thought, how has he done so well? And then you only have to see him in training, and then obviously play a game, and you realise that he is a winner. I mean, he's nuts. You know what Dino's like? He's absolutely nuts, but he's a winner. You know why you'd want him on your team instead of against you? Because he was just absolutely, he win. One of these boys that wanted to win at all. In a training session, you look at the old teams, as successful teams like Man United, and you talk about Roy Keane with his rant last week.
Yeah.
And Dino was one of them. You wouldn't need Graham at times to get you motivated. Dino would be there to make sure things were done properly. So that's why characters like that are really important in a team.
And I think that's why Dino sort of followed on with Graham for a number of those years as well. Of course, now he's gone on and he's got his own career. He's had spells at Stevenage, spells at Oldham and stuff as well. And he's currently, unfortunately, without a club. But when he was with Graham there, he was part of that side that got the conference promotion, the League Two promotion. He was part of that very strong backroom staff that we had there. Yeah.
That's right, yeah. And his character, his character that, I've played, previously, I've played with some top players that, achieved a lot in the game. And you saw that, but I think he was one of the ones, Dino was one of the ones that stuck out to me with that real leadership qualities and that desire and that real determination that, it rubs off on you. It does rub off on you. The stories I could tell, when we've even gone and with me, Bruffy and Dino went on a game of golf once. I think there's, who else? Anthony Elding was with us. Right. And we went round each hole and we played for a couple of pounds, a pound a hole or something, say, just to put something on the game. And Dino was going crazy by the end of it. He lost the plot because he lost on the last hole.
Yeah.
He just didn't say, well done, boys, congratulations. We shook hands at you.
He winner at whatever he does. Yeah.
He actually threw his club off. He threw his club and he stormed off the golf course because he'd lost the round of golf, And we laugh about it, but that's the type of bloke he was. He wanted to win.
We'll touch on your game, your debut game against Dagenham as well. That was a very eventful day, wasn't it? We were just touching on it there before the stream as well. Did you, Andy Woodman was in goal when he got sent off. Was it always going to be Richie going in goal? You didn't fancy throwing your name into there, no?
I'm the worst goalkeeper. Honestly, Mike, no, that wouldn't have worked out. I don't think obviously pre-planned. I'm not sure if we even had a pre-plan if that eventuality did happen. I remember the game though. I mean, I remember feeling really fit, and I think that boys had a real good pre-season, and I remember the feeling that we were really confident going into the game. Yeah. And I can picture it now. I can remember playing. I remember the day. And then obviously I don't quite remember how Andy got sent off, but I do remember him coming off. And obviously Richie. Next thing I know Richie's jogging across the pitch.
It might have been. I don't know if it was a red card or an injury, but either way, we didn't have a sub.
Yeah, I think it. Maybe. Yeah. And I remember seeing Richie go in goal, and I'm like, what? So I remember him going in goal, and obviously the result in the end, 3-1, didn't. I think it knocked us a little bit because I think we were so confident going into that game, Mike. I think that game kind of knocked us a little bit because we had such a strong pre-season, and we felt so. I think the team felt real confident. We went into that game, really expecting to win, and I think that that kind of knocked our plans a little bit.
I was just looking over there because actually in my laptop bag I've got Andy's book as well. You know, the book he done with Gareth Southgate.
Yeah, of course.
So that was
Yeah.
in there. I've still got that to read yet. It's just been sat there, but
He's
I'm
a
going to
great
be
lad. Yeah, Andy was a good character. He's a great lad.
be looking into that. I'm going to have I've interviewed Andy already, and it was a good chat as well, to be honest. So it's good.
Great.
Yeah, to get a few of those guys on. And then we touched on it before in regards to the playoffs as well. So what was it about that side that you believe could have gone on and got the promotion?
Like I say, just the characters we had, and I think building up to I think we went into the playoffs really confident, and like we said, the Hereford games, they were tough, but I think fully deserved, and we did deserve to go through. And going into the final, I remember the final really, really well, because obviously I got dropped for that final game after playing. And like I said, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, I felt like I played most games that season, that first season.
Yeah, I'm not too sure on the stats, but I know you played more than you missed out on. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and then so expecting to be part of at least part of the squad going into the final, and you probably know because the fans were waiting for us to turn up. We set off. I mean, me and Anthony set off at a crazy time from Boston early that morning, and we travelled all the way down Stevenage, went across the north of London, and went up towards Stoke, obviously. And it felt like the journey from hell. I remember the journey. I felt like we'd been on that bus hours. Stopped at a hotel to have our pre-match meal, Mike, and actually Daki pulled me. I think Graham was there as well. Daki pulled me and just said to me, "Listen, Matt, the gaffer's made a decision, and he's decided you're not going to be in the squad." And I was surprised. Hey, listen, I said, "In the squad?" He was like, "Listen, he's made some decisions today, and based on the final and stuff." And I just said to you before, Mike, thinking back now, I'm looking, going, maybe, and he might have his opinion on this, but for me, I think his probably heart ruled his head that day, and he, players come and played that probably hadn't played as normally that season, and he put players in the side that weren't, involved, in most of the games during the season, and I've looked and thought, hey, I still wanted the boys to win, and I was obviously gutted, disappointed, still got on the pitch and warmed up and stuff and be part of it. But, personally, obviously, I was really disappointed not to be part of that final. But, yeah, as you know, we turned up at the ground after that pre-match meal by walking in for the last half mile, I think. And we had to sneak through a gate, and we ran out on the pitch, ran out on the pitch. He said, we got 10 minutes to warm up. We got in the changing rooms, we was rushing, we had the team sheet up, and it was really chaotic. I remember being chaotic, going on the field to play for the boys. And obviously, we conceded after, I think, in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it has got anything to do with preparation, but it wasn't an ideal preparation for the game. But hey, we still wanted to win and rooted for the boys. And I remember, obviously you had the interview with Rob Quinn, and him being on the bench, and him being part of most of that season as well. And it was just a bit like a big anticlimax of the season, because we'd done so, pretty well getting there, and expected to, we did honestly expect to go up. And
we'd beaten Carlisle twice as well in the season. We'd beaten them home and away. So yeah.
Mike, I remember the games, and so we're pretty confident going. No, we beat them before twice, so we're going to win.
Yeah.
And we had that attitude that we're going to win the game. We just got to do what we normally do. And I think it was a big, like I say, big anticlimax. I remember getting on the bus after. No one spoke on the bus. People had gone off in the cars that wanted to go off from there, and then I think half the team got on the bus to travel. No one spoke. And then that was the end of the season, done. That's how it finished. And it was really disappointing. Looking back, it was a disappointing time.
And then the second season, what was it like sort of coming back, on the back of that, and, back in the conference again? Yeah. And was a similar kind of group? I don't think there was too many changes. I don't remember anyway.
Not that year, no. It was tough. Like I give you, like a generic answer, but it is always tough. When you then gone up, you expect to, and you get disappointed. You come into the next season, and I think, to be fair, Graham and Daki did a great job of picking us up, and that. I know that second season for me, I picked up some injuries. It's an eventful second season. I remember having a groin strain for a long time, and I couldn't shake it off. I had a cortisone injection one day to try and get myself fit for the next day, and it kind of worked for a while. And I was on and off really that second season. So it was tough. I found the second season was a lot tougher than the first season. And I remember still doing exercises with Graham and as a team we was like, he instilled in us that we expected to win. He instilled in us that we were the best team. He told the press. I mean, he wasn't shy of us going down to Dagenham. And I remember going down to Woking. Was it Woking once? And he actually said, we're going to win. I remember in the programme notes, he's put, we're going to win the game. Obviously, we're a better team and we're a better club. So we're going to come here. And
that's going to rile Woking up, especially with the rivalry that we've got with them anyway.
He used to do it every game, and the boys will tell you. Them boys from that team will tell you. He used to tell the press, obviously we're going to win today. But he obviously did it on purpose. I think he'll tell you himself, but I think he told us that because he wanted us to walk out with our chests up and go and expect to win games and have that confidence. But also, I think he wanted to maybe intimidate and wanted that kind of, we are the best team. And we felt like we were, Mike. I promise you, I think every player will tell you the same, that we felt that we were the best team in that league.
And then surely, with Graham there as well, that was, you mentioned there with Daki and Graham and, what were your sort of reactions to see, the club get promoted when we had Graham, and the fact that he's come back so many times since then as well, even to the end of last season and a few games there with obviously a completely different squad that he's not assembled or anything like that. But what's your sort of reactions in regards to that? And, Phil's kind of reaction to, go back to Graham every opportunity that he kind of gets.
Do you know what? I honestly, Mike, I root for all my ex-clubs. I ain't got too many, but I've got a few ex-old clubs that I obviously used to play for. And I obviously look at the Bostons where I'm from and the Sheffield United now, they're in the Premier League and Hull and stuff. And I always want, because it's not so much obviously the players move on, but it's the people at the club, that, obviously Graham's been back at Stevenage a few times now, and so that's great. But it's just the club in general, it was a good, there's not many clubs that I've gone to that I didn't feel a connection with. I mean, there's a couple, but in general, the likes of Stevenage and obviously Boston, because that's my hometown club, and especially starting off with Sheffield and Hull. Connections, I remember the fans, I remember, everything about it. And of course, I think most players will tell you they want the rooting for their old clubs to do really well. And
you were just saying about the fans as well there. Just before we did this, I was actually just watching a stream that they were putting out of, how important it is for these football clubs to get fans back in now. And there was like the petition and things like that. I was just kind of following on YouTube, and I don't know what the conclusion was yet for after the whole sort of situation, because we're back under lockdown again for another month at the moment. So I don't know what the whole situation is with there, but how important is it for players to kind of get the energy from the fans?
Massive. I like to think that we've all played, all the players played in like reserve games maybe, where you played at a stadium and there's no one there, there's 50, 100, 200 fans there at a big stadium, and of course it's not the same. The energy that I think you find that now. I mean, obviously I follow Sheffield United as well, and obviously being there as a kid, and I think without speaking out, I think that's a big reason why they're not the same team as there was last year, because they might be struggling quality wise and they can't compete with the top boys, but last year they came off a high of winning or going up from the Championship, and the crowd is like, hey, the cliche, is like the 12th player, especially at a place like Bramall Lane where it's they get behind the team and it's real passion up there. And I think they miss it. I think probably for bigger teams that have pressure on them, sometimes it might actually be a benefit for some of the big teams that are expected to win every week. But it's not the same.
It's difficult though to judge that, because obviously this season's been a weird season anyway. Like there's been some freak results, in the Premier League. Take Villa for example.
Exactly.
The 7-2 over Liverpool, and the Spurs defeat at Old Trafford as well. I kind of have to mention that one. Sorry, sorry, man. I didn't really want to mention it, but I kind of should. And even yesterday as well, Villa going to the Emirates and just completely turning Arsenal over like that. So
I know it's that does play a part, Mike. I do think that plays a part. I mean, listen, for people who are listening that's played in front of the crowd, of course it does. It's like it's a massive bonus when you go and play. It gives you the energy. It gives you hear people, whatever you say, you do hear people, what in the crowd cheering and you comments and that. Of course, it gets the adrenaline going and it has an effect on the team. Of course it does. And I think it's massive. And obviously, I'm not over there at the moment, and I get to see parts, but obviously, I'm not there to see it personally. But
Yeah.
I can only imagine what it's like to to play in front, especially in a big stadium when it's like a 70, 80,000 seater stadium and there's no one there. It's completely different.
And you mentioned there about your links with Sheffield United as well, playing there. And of course, that was Stevenage, Sheffield United in the League One semi-finals as well. So did you have kind of split loyalties at all with that?
Yeah, it's difficult. I just want, especially, being over here in the US where I am at the moment, I mentioned teams to some of the kids that I'm coaching at the moment, and they don't, they don't get the exposure to the games like we obviously we have back home. And you mentioned teams, and I want, when I've got a team like Stevenage, Sheffield United playing each other, it's difficult. I don't really root for a certain team. I want them both to do well, because.
How big are Stevenage over there in the States with the whole link with Burger King? Do people know about Stevenage a lot more now?
Not where we are in California. No, I've mentioned to players about Stevenage and some of the old clubs and what we used to games and that. And I'm going to be honest with you. The thing is over here that the kids have got access to so many different sports, Mike, and we won't get into that. But I know there's obviously massive basketball, American football, and obviously baseball, and this, it's not a love like we have for the game, obviously in Europe and England. So they know people like LeBron James, and they know people like Peyton Manning, and all these different. But when
it's not automatically Stevenage and linked with Burger King, so it's a lot more known. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have thought so, but not at the moment. Yeah, not at the moment.
Fair enough. So we'll touch on your goal that you scored against Morecambe as well. So do you remember much about that game? I know we were 3-1 winners on the day.
I do not, Mike. I did see the goal. I didn't even know my goal was at Morecambe. I know. Yeah. I don't remember a lot about the goal. To be honest, I didn't throughout my whole career. I didn't score that many goals at all. Few headers off corners or. I remember coming on once for one of my old teams of scoring. I came on as a striker and scoring a goal there, but they were pretty thin. I think obviously not being 6 foot plus, I think you'd always send Graham or whoever's in charge would send the big boys forward off set pieces, especially defending.
I remember. I think Luke Oliver's been up front a few times, and Jason went up front a few times as well. So
because big boys in the air, and because of my attributes, I want to say my main attribute was my pace. My athleticism, my pace. So if the ball got cleared and there's a breakaway, it'd rely on me to be at the back to go and tidy things up, and just go and sweep things up at the back. So didn't get forward a lot. So goals were a bit thin.
I think that was the only one you scored at Stevenage as well. I think it was. I think actually it might have even been a goal that put us ahead in that game. I think we were 1 down and. I think Jason equalised, and I think it was within about a minute that you scored as well, when it was 2-1, and then we went and scored towards the end as well. So
I remember do you know what, Mike, as well? There was a game as well where I had a header. I think it's obviously a Brighton game where I had a header off a corner. I scored a second goal for Stevenage, but obviously it wasn't a competitive game.
Yeah.
It was a pre-season friendly. I remember scoring it. It was a decent goal, to be fair. Good header, but it's a shame we weren't in the league. But they were a bit thin, but hey.
All right. And then, we'll touch on the FA Cup a little bit as well, because we had that FA Cup run where we knocked out the likes of Billericay, I think it was, and ended up getting Rochdale in the second round. And Stevenage, of course, are in the hat for the second round, which is being drawn in about an hour's time. So, what's that competition like for you as a player, and how much do you miss that from being over in America?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I spoke. You know what? It's funny because I had a game yesterday with my team here, and I spoke about the FA Cup, and we played against, arguably yesterday, my boys played against a lesser team, not quite as talented, and so I mentioned the FA Cup, saying this is what happens in England with the FA Cup. Big teams sometimes get unstuck because of because these standard. I'm lucky enough, probably, Mike, to be experienced the Premier League when I was at Sheffield United as a young kid. Go to York City, go to Hull, and kind of play at different levels obviously in England, and play obviously non-league, play even less, played local level towards the end. And I say to the players now that I coach that it's not always the talent that's the difference. It's sometimes the mentality. And so you go to these places, and boys don't get less determined when you play against lesser clubs. They're not smaller or not as strong. Sometimes you play against big, stronger players that are aggressive, and hey, these games are tough. These games are tough when you play against these, some of these low opposition, and they want it more. They've got a point to prove. They want to they want to make it as a pro, and so they've got points. So these are tough games.
It was that on Saturday as well with Stevenage. They only just about got past Concord Rangers on a penalty shootout. So you can see that just because they're a few leagues below. Tom Pett, the guy that we've just re-signed for the club, he come out and he even said it in his interview. He said, they're not going to roll over and sort of let you tickle their bellies, because that's it for them. It's their massive game for them, especially right now as well, in terms of getting through and one round away from a potential tie against some massive clubs.
This is it, especially in the modern game, Mark. We spoke about before, fitness, and people where you play against these teams now, they're not coming out the pub anymore, and they're not coming off a heavy night out in the, you're just going to turn up and it's done. These boys are fit. Even if they do it themselves and go to the gym and get them going, these boys are fit at these clubs, even the non-league clubs. So I think as we've gone on now in the modern day, I think it's even tougher because these boys look after themselves. And so you go to these places, and I remember playing you mentioned the FA Cup at Stevenage, but it was I was luckier probably at other clubs to play big ties. I remember being at Hull and at York playing the likes of Newcastle and Crystal Palace, and we played. And we played in Premier League teams, and there wasn't a difference in the quality. But I think we tied it. We drew against Crystal Palace at their place at Sellers Park when I was at Hull, and we actually went through to the next round of the League Cup after beating them. And they had a strong team out. We played Fulham. I remember at York we played Fulham in the FA Cup, and they beat us 2-0. Right. But it was a tight game. They scored a really early goal and a really late goal. But for the middle part of the game, it was
right in there. Yeah.
It was full, blood and thunder, kind of tie. And this is it. You get to these FA Cup ties, and you're playing these games. Oh, great games to play in. But it's hey, you can't take anything for granted. Not anymore.
No, absolutely. And on that day, I think we were coming up against some good players in Rochdale. I think they had Grant Holt playing for them. I think I'm not too sure who was marking him. It wasn't your job to mark Grant Holt, was it, on that day?
Oh, don't tell me that. Probably no. I hope not. Yeah,
and he scored a couple of goals. I know he did score one of the goals for them anyway.
Yeah. It's we had some. It was a tough game. I remember the game. I remember the game, and it's they were decent. Rochdale had decent. They had a couple of decent players, I remember, and obviously a decent club at the time. So unfortunately, we didn't go on and get into like a third round.
Yeah, it would have been good then to draw a big team, a Premier League team or whatever. Yeah,
makes a difference.
Yeah, it does. For especially even more so right now in the current climate as well. We've got the tie, the second round tie being played at the end of this month, I think it is, and I'm just hopeful that we get a winnable tie, and then we're put into the hat for that third round, because I think even this season it's all basically done by extra time and penalty. So you saw when we drew against Newcastle back in the early 90s, even before you were associated with the club, on that day, then you never know what might happen. If it goes to extra time and penalties, you might be able to sort of use that fitness level and kind of just surprise the odds a bit. Yeah,
exactly, especially for the especially not just for the fans but for the players. When you're playing in the lower league, maybe your Conference League 1, League 2, these are memories for the players that hey, they know these memories last forever. Playing against some of the top boys, and you learn. like I said before, I've lucky enough to play against some of these top teams in the FA Cup, Mike. You're standing in the tunnel against the Beckhams, and I remember playing against Fulham in the FA Cup, and you're looking at Van der Sar in goal. He was 6'7". The next one in the line was that night. He was 6'7". They had another one in there. I'm like looking at them in the tunnel. I'm thinking, these boys are freaks of natures. They had Steve Malbronk at the time. They had Sahar. You see them on the field, and you're like, you could see the difference between the levels of where we were and obviously the top. And it's good to experience what the top boys are like in actual game.
Absolutely, yeah. And some of those guys are internationals as well. Most of them are internationals, yeah.
Yeah, and they're probably playing a little bit of a canter, but they you can definitely see the difference of. It's not just the technical ability of these players; it's the athleticism and it's the physiques, and you can see that they, obviously these are the real elite players, and it's great for any player to get that opportunity, whether it be in the league or obviously the FA Cup, to go and play against them.
Do you know much about Alex Ravel, who's in charge there now? And you said that you try and follow the club a little bit from over in the States as much as you can. But do you know much about Alex?
Not at the moment. No, I obviously know he's in charge at the moment, but I don't know him especially personally. I don't know him too well.
Fair enough. And then sort of how are things going for you in the States as well? And what is it that you kind of do over there in terms of sort of coaching and management and whatever?
Yeah, I've come over. I've been over here 3 years now, Mike, and I after I finished back home in England playing, I went through my coaching qualifications, like I know a lot of other boys have done that I played with, and worked at a couple of clubs, volunteered at a few clubs, worked at my hometown club at Boston, and Peterborough United for 3 or 4 years at Peterborough with the academy boys, and had the opportunity to come to the States. And actually, it was an old coach of mine that when I was at Sheffield United, he was my coach when I was an under 14.
Okay.
He here in Southern California, and offered me, said, would you like to come and coach over in the USA? And it's obviously massive decision because it's not just me. I've got a wife and 2 children, and it was a massive. But hey, it's something that's been really positive. So far we've loved every minute. So I'm part of a club here it's actually in Murrieta, which is we're about an hour south of LA, and I'd say 45 minutes to an hour north of San Diego. So it's a lovely area, but it's got some great kids. I can see it's great because obviously I see the difference between the kids I've coached at home and the kids here. Yeah. And but there is some real talent, and we've got some real talent at the club. And these boys have now got the opportunity. Now we've been put into the new MLS, the MLS Youth League, which they've just created this season.
Okay.
And so we're playing against the likes of LAFC and LA Galaxy and Real Salt Lake and all these local clubs. But hey, with COVID, it's been a nightmare. It's been a real nightmare in California.
I can imagine, actually. And but it's good for the young lads to get a bit of coaching experience from somebody that's played the game as well, which is obviously a big big thing for them.
Yeah, there's a few. Our club here, we're trying to bring in, and we've got all sorts of coaches that have played top college level soccer here. I told you I'd say soccer.
That's all right.
Top college soccer here, and we've got coaches that lots of, obviously being in Southern California, we've got lots of Hispanic players, lots of Hispanic coaches, and they've got completely different experiences of playing in Mexico and playing in Peru. I've got a couple of players Peruvian, and different. So you know what, you see a different style of not just the way the game's played, but you see a different style of coaching. You see, and it's not good or bad. It's just a different way of doing it and different ideas. And so it's been really interesting for me over the last 3 years to see, how the South American kids that have come from South America, how they play and their style and the way they've been coached. And, and then you see the American kids that have had local coaching from the, local American, and it all comes together. And we've got a few British people at the club, and it's a great mix. It's really opened my eyes to the game.
That's really good to see that. It's still sort of it's taking off over in the States as well and becoming a big sport over there at the moment. Yeah,
it is. And people always ask me, Mike, is it going to be? Will the USA? How's it? will they win the World Cup? And I always thought, one of the biggest countries in the world, of course, that they're going to be up there eventually. But it's not that they've got the players. I think it's just like I mentioned before in the conversation. They've got so many different sports here.
Yeah.
And I actually went on a US soccer coaching course.
Okay.
And I asked a question to the tutor. Actually, I said, "Listen, why is it in this country that we don't?" And to be honest, the tutor even answered. The guy who worked for US soccer said, "Our best athletes don't play the sport. Our best athletes do play basketball, and you watch American football, and some of the best athletes don't go into because the money's not in it like it is obviously back home.
Yeah.
So they lose a lot of players, and it isn't the main sport, and the players don't. The parents and the players, they don't. Not on the whole, this is generally don't live and breathe it like we do, obviously back home. So it is getting there. It is getting better. And but it's a long way away from where we are at the moment.
All right, fair enough. There's not too much more to go through in regards to this, but with Stevenage, have you seen much about sort of the community side of things that the club were doing?
I see bits. I see that it's really important, especially at this moment in time with the current climate, what goes on in the community. I know that a lot of things are done at clubs at the moment where they help out the local community, but I don't know, individual programs that are going on. But I obviously do know that it's really important.
And there's quite a lot of things. They're doing a whole new winter scheme now as well. And they've kind of beforehand they were doing a sandwich delivery, a helpline, lots of good initiatives, basically. Yeah,
it's great. I see a lot of clubs doing things like that. It's really, and obviously we see over here the Marcus Rashford thing, what's been going on, and I think it's really important for the community to do that. I still speak to some of the old players. Not so much. All of the players, but they're still keep in touch with Rob Quinn every now and again, and going back to the days there, Mike. I do try and keep in touch and even if we don't speak, keep an eye on what people are doing. I see that obviously Justin Goodliff, and I see obviously Rob's at Crystal Palace now, and there's boys like Bruffy who spoke to you. I've been watching the interviews and seeing what's going on, and it's been great to see the old boys and seeing what they're up to.
Bruffy was definitely the smartest one, doing it from his office.
I know. I thought today I better to get myself smartened up a little bit.
It's all good. No, it's all good. I don't know if we've actually got that much else. So just maybe one more actually. So what sort of advice would you give to anyone that wanted to get into coaching? It could be an ex-player or just a young guy, young girl that wants to get into it.
Into the coaching?
Yeah.
Well, it's do you know what? It's getting, I think, watching good coaches coach, Mike. I think it's good to, especially having experiences, definitely you've got to do that. At this day and age, you've got to go through the courses. It took me a while to get through, the UEFA courses back home, to get to the UEFA A, and, a number of years to get that done. Yeah. But, which is great. They're all, whatever you say about our courses back home, that, I think they're fantastic. But it's not just doing the courses and getting that bit of paper. For me, it's watching good coaches coach, and it's seeing what they do and learning from. I mean, I read and watch a lot now about, some of the coaches, like even like Pep Guardiola, who says like he's the biggest thief. I think his quote is something like, he's the biggest thief that there is out in the game. He said, because I just steal people's sessions. I watch something and I look at it and I think he says, I take it on board myself and I steal people's sessions and I adapt it to what I think how we can do it. And I think it's important. I mean, before I got back into being paid as a coach back in England, I used to travel to Hull City to watch their academy train. I travelled to Leeds United on a few occasions and asked them if I could go and watch their teams train and their coach's coach. Yeah. Sheffield United invited me on a CPD course when I wasn't even at the club. They said, come on our CPD course and watch what we're doing. And so I love that. So it's important that you get lots of experience of different coaches coach. And, as I'm getting older now, no way is the right way for me. Everyone has opinions on how it should be done. But I think it's good to get a general, like I said to you minutes ago, coming over here has really opened my eyes to different ways, because I look at what we do at home and I think that was great. Then definitely if I came back to the UK now, I'd definitely be a different person the way I coach. and you know, yeah, with the different age groups and different teams, I'll be, on the experience I've learned here.
That's excellent. And then just one more really is just in regards to sort of any role models that you had sort of growing up, from football and sort of out of football as well. Who was the kind of main inspirations for you?
Well, these are my role models. I had a few. Do you know what? I had a few, and the likes of it's not a good. This is not a good role model now, but as a player, I used to watch. Obviously, it was up my era with Maradona. He used to be obviously a genius. Yeah. Obviously, Maradona was a genius. British players, English players. I remember being a young kid, watching like the Brian Robsons, and for Man United now, how good he was, and obviously this day and age, you look at the Ronaldos, and what a great example he is. Really, the Ronaldos. If you ask any kid around the world, they know who Ronaldo is and who Messi and the top boys are. But there's some great examples of role models out there. But it's. And listen, I say to the kids here, we used to watch the games on TV, Mike, mm-hmm. and even every kid did this at my age. Watch the FA Cup final. You'd get half time. You'd take your ball. You'd go in your back garden or go in your front street, and you'd go and recreate the goals from the first half.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you'd try and emulate. That's it. You emulate. So when I say a particular role model, it's difficult because it's like I say, the Matt Hocking and Brian Robsons and the boys I look up to, obviously the Beckhams, who was a bit newer generation. But just watching the game in general for me, just watching the games, watching what players do, trying to emulate what the top players did. I think that was a big thing. And we was fortunate enough to go and watch live games. Most, if I went to Boston, I was at Lincoln or Sheffield United, or I used to go to watch Grimsby, or didn't watch Grimsby. I used to pop down to Peterborough. Or, there's so many games around us.
You used to just go across the whole, the whole spectrum, really. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, before we go, I just want to reiterate. Really, we had, going back to the Stevenage days, we had some real, we had some. I remember things in the dressing room that we had some real good characters, and like I say, Graham brought these characters in. Even I mentioned people like Justin Gregory, mm-hmm. who was a great character, not just a good player, good character to be in the dressing room. Play pranks on, even like when he'd be injured, which he was quite a lot of the time, we'd be out training, he'd come back in and he'd took people's phones, which I didn't think had locks on, like phones out their pockets, right. in their things. He used to change numbers around, Mike, and he used to he put his numbers as the gaffer's numbers, as Wesley's numbers. And he used to send the boys a text saying, "Come and meet me in my office. I've got something really important I need to speak to you about." And the boys would be knocking on the gaffer's door. And he'd be going, "Gaffer, what? You'd speak to me." He's like, "No." And we'd have a laugh. We'd have a laugh about that. Always got to speak to the gaffer. Things like like I said with Dino and Brooklyn when we used to go golfing, and the team camaraderie at the time in them days, but was great. We had some great characters in the dressing room, and big. When I look back now, memories I look at, not just on the field, because I feel like we did, like I said, we did underachieve in the days at the club at Stevenage. But the boys we had some great people. We did have some great people.
And you were saying off stream as well in regards to sort of some of the sort of trips and stuff that you used to take together pre-season.
Oh my God, the boys will. Anyone that watching this that used to play time will laugh. I remember coming in one day and we was out the FA Cup actually, so it's Christmas time. Was it after Christmas? And obviously the FA Cup weekend, the gaffer came in and went, "Listen, boys, the end of the week we're going abroad. I'm taking you now. I'm going to pay for you. We're all going to. I think we went to Torremolinos. And he said, and was like, "Oh, well, that'd be good. Yeah, he said, and the boys were like, "Oh God, we're going to run." So he went out of the change room. I think he came back in and said, I'm not going. He said, "But I want you to go and enjoy yourselves. And you're not going to need your boots, by the way."
I think, is this the one that Rob was saying about when Dacky was in charge?
He said, "Jimmy Dack will be in charge of the troops." That was his words. Jimmy Dack will be in charge of the troops. Yeah. And he was the biggest kid ever. He was a great kid, great lad. But we was all like, times up. We had some great, and that, for the team, he obviously did that for the team bonding. And we got out there, we came back, and honestly, and we'd had such a good time. I remember being really close to, the boys, real, you fight in the games. I think it's part of things like that he did on purpose,
Yeah.
which was clever, and obviously, but in the end, my time at Stevenage, I wouldn't say I fell out with Graham because I respected him. I think we had respect for each other, but I was disappointed the way I left, and he asked me to get my hair cut, and the boys will laugh, but he pulled me in training ground one day and said, "Listen, Matt, so I've decided you need to have your hair shaved off," and they talk about long hair, but it wasn't much long. I mean, it's probably slightly longer. I'm getting a bit.
I've got to see if I can find a photo of this.
and he asked me to get my hair shaved off, and I went back out, and I told the boys, and they went, "What?" And Graham said to me, "Listen, it's perception," and that's his words. It's perception. If you're a defender and you've got your hair shaved and you've got a skinhead, people won't want to mess around with you. He said, because if I'm playing against you, I remember him saying, if I'm playing against you and you've got longer hair, I'm going to get. I said, well, that's fine if you think that, but when you play against me, I know I'm quicker and stronger than you and better than you, so you're not going to get past me. So you can think what you want. Yeah. He went, nah, I want to get it shaved off. If you don't have it shaved off by the weekend, you won't be playing this weekend. Look, he showed me a bit of paper.
This isn't at Stevenage. This was I think it was at Boston. I don't know whether you'll be able to see that.
Yeah, let's have a look.
No, we don't know if you can see it. I might have to send it you instead, actually.
Yeah. It was like, but he was like, so I didn't get my hair shaved, obviously, in the end. And I came back in one day and he's like, listen, it's not, you're not going to be involved. And so I think that was the end of me. I don't think I played again after that. And I look back now and I think to myself sometimes, should I have got, I don't know. I couldn't understand what he was saying by saying to me, get your hair shaved off. It's about perception and you have a skinhead. Yeah. But I don't think, for me, it wouldn't have changed the way I played. I always give you can ask any player, you always want to win games. It's not going to change the way I'm going to play. It might change people's perception on me, but it wouldn't have a big effect. I don't think so. It ended on a disappointing note there, but
we'll end it on a high because you had one of the best songs, that's for sure.
It was a great song. Surprised, yeah. Had a great song. It was Hocking all over the world.
It was a great song. Do you want to give us a burst or no?
Not really. Not really. It's a bit early for me in the morning.
No, it was a great one, to be honest. I loved it. Definitely one of the highlights and one that stands in my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It was funny. It was good. It was good days. Yeah. Thank you.
But yeah, thanks a lot for taking some time out today to do this as well, this interview, and best of luck with everything that you got over in America there.
Thanks, Mike.
And I never know what's in store for the future, but you might end up back at Stevenage for a game at some point, maybe coming down to the Lamex, and when you're back in the UK, of course, and seeing a game of football when we're allowed to again.
Exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. Well, when I'm allowed to come back across, when I can come back across, and which is I try and get back across, at least once or twice a year, and I don't get a lot of time. But when we do, that would be great. It's great to see old people and old friends and that. And honestly, I do wish the club all the best. It's hopefully you can tell from what I've been saying. It's fond memories, and I love the club. Love the club. Love the people there. The fans are great and deserve to be now. Obviously, football leagues been there a while, but deserve to be climbing the leagues because I feel like it's a club still with big potential. And
we didn't even touch on the fact that they survived by a sort of reprieve in the end with Macclesfield. So it's just great to be a football league club still. And hopefully we can kick on. Yeah.
Yeah, you see some of the other examples of clubs similar to Stevenage, that have gone on and done. I mean, I remember playing like Bournemouth, in League Two, and that wasn't that many moons ago. You played, and they've gone on, and they played at the top level not so long ago, and it's you never know what's in store. You really don't, especially at a club that's has got big expectations and got some good people behind it like Stevenage. So I wish them all the best, and I honestly I do follow what goes on week to week. So it's
all right.
Hey, thank you for your time, Mike. I appreciate it.
No worries. I'm going to get myself ready and go and watch this FA Cup draw, and hopefully we'll get a decent second round tie to push us into that third. So
that'd be great. Yeah, I'll try and get it on myself online, and I'll have a look what goes on.
All right. Cheers, Matt. Thanks a lot, mate.
Good. No problem at all. Thank you.
Nice one, mate.